Coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios, this is Prime News on SABC 3 and in your top stories at this hour. Businessman Vusimuzi Cat Matlala returned for his second day of testimony before Parliament's ad hoc committee at the Mampuru C Max prison in Pretoria. The Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has heard that the outcome of a commission of inquiry is not rationally linked to the appointment of ministers. And US President Donald Trump says South Africa will not be invited to next year's G20 summit. Good evening and welcome to Prime News on SABC 3, your compass to current events. My name is Beki Mutumombolete, your host for this evening. Let's chart a course through the most significant stories of the day. And with that said, here are your leads. Businessman Vusimuzi Cat Matlala returned for his second day of testimony before Parliament's ad hoc committee at the Mampuru C Max prison in Pretoria. Matlala, who is awaiting trial on an attempted murder charge, is scheduled to testify over 3 days at the high security facility.
Today, Matlala doubled down on claims against former police minister Bheki Cele. He insists Cele asked him for 1 million rands despite Cele's denial before the committee last month.
I offered him the first payment. It was 300,000. So it was in January this year. And for the reason for me to give me that money is because of he asked for money.
He asked for the money?
Yes.
Did he mention 300,000 rand?
No, he actually wanted 1 million rand.
Matlala says the first 300,000 rands was handed over at his Pretoria apartment in January, followed by another 200,000 rands days later.
The day I decided to stop, I was supposed to give him 300,000 again. But that never happened. It's when I decided to stop taking his calls.
Matlala also faced tough questions about his alleged links to drug cartels. He denied any involvement but admitted his friend Jerry Bushoka was in the drug trade and owed him money when he disappeared. The businessman further rejected claims that he influenced the disbanding of KwaZulu-Natal's political killings task team. Earlier, Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi alleged Matlala used his ties to senior officers to destabilize the unit after a raid on his property.
I don't know what power would I have for me to disband the unit from the SAPS, because from what I heard from my affidavits that I have from, that thing was planned, I think, way back in 2019 for that unit to be disbanded.
And in a dramatic twist, Matlala accused police of tampering with his phone whilst he was in prison. He says conversations were manipulated, including messages where he was referred to as Lamini, his grandmother's surname. Matlala's testimony continues tomorrow as the committee digs deeper into allegations of corruption, of political interference and links to organized crime.
Meanwhile, Democratic Alliance MP Glenys Breitenbach launched a scathing attack on Matlala, labeling him a thief and a thug who hides behind the title of businessman.
In my view, Mr. Matlala, you're not a businessman. You're a crook.
I am.
You're a thief, you're a fraud, and you're corrupt. And the problem in this country today is that people like yourself clothe yourself in the respectability of calling yourself a businessman when you are nothing but a dishonest thug. You make an illicit fortune by stealing from the poorest of the poor. It's people like you and your associates that have robbed generations of South African children of their futures. Shame on you, sir. I'm finished, Chair.
And more on this, the National Assembly has approved a second extension of the deadline for the ad hoc committee to the 20th of February next year. The ad hoc committee was established in September to look into concerns of national security. The committee's initial deadline was the end of October, which was extended to end of November. But due to the workload of the committee, another extension was requested. It has been approved in the House this afternoon. In other news, the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has heard that the outcome of a commission of inquiry is not rationally linked to the appointment of ministers. This as former President Jacob Zuma and the MK party made their third attempt to challenge President Cyril Ramaphosa's July decisions to place Police Minister Senzo Mchunu on a leave of absence, the subsequent appointment of Professor Feroz Kachalia, and the establishment of a commission of inquiry. Counsel on behalf of former President Jacob Zuma, however, argue that the president does not have such powers and further charge that the past has shown that commission's outcomes have not made a difference in the president's appointments.
You will remember that what we say is that Minister Mantashe, there's also a former Minister Zizi Kodwa and Deputy Minister Mahlobo. Those ministers were all fingered and got adverse findings against them in the Zondo Commission. And in a nutshell, this is what we say in that. We know that this president, not somebody else, this very president, faced with adverse outcomes of a commission of inquiry, still appointed those people.
All that will be required is for his opponents to make wild and serious allegations against his cabinet ministers. They must dismiss them all without putting in place a process to determine whether in fact a dismissal is the constitutional outcome, indicated outcome. So we submit there is an implied power.
This is what Minister Mchunu says about the circumstances under which he was suspended and why and what was his attitude towards that. Can I just read for the record that paragraph because it's important. What I must also be clear about is that when the president told me that he proposed to place me on leave of absence, I agreed with the course of action. It is therefore incorrect for the applicants to insinuate that I was coercively placed on leave, that is, involuntarily or against my will.
After the break, US President Donald Trump says South Africa will not be invited to next year's G20 summit. See you soon. Welcome back to Prime News on 3. US President Donald Trump says that South Africa will not be invited to next year's G20 summit. In a post on Truth Social, he says that the US did not attend this year's summit in Johannesburg because the South African government refuses to acknowledge or address the human rights abuse endured by Afrikaners.
Donald Trump says South Africa refused to hand over the G20 presidency to a senior representative of the U.S. Embassy at Sunday's closing ceremony at Nasrec. Trump added that he will therefore not extend an invitation to South Africa to the 2026 G20 summit in Miami. He said all payments and subsidies to South Africa will stop effective immediately. South African government says that the U.S. was invited to the summit but chose to stay away.
The United States was expected to participate in all meetings of the G20 during South Africa's presidency and elected not to attend the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg out of its own volition. South Africa is a member of the G20 in its own name and right. Its G20 membership is at the behest of all other members. South Africa is also a sovereign, constitutional democratic country and does not appreciate insults from another country about its worth in participating in global platforms.
What
Trump is doing is kind of counterproductive to the United States' own global image. This is an image that has been painstakingly built for more than 3/4 of a century, since the end of the Second World War and the beginning of the United Nations. And then when it comes to explaining really what has been happening towards South Africa, you realize that it is towards Donald Trump's own personal interest rather than the interest of the United States.
The presidency has described as regrettable this decision by Donald Trump. Dita Wasotezi, SABC News.
According to Section 179 of the Constitution, the President, who appoints the national and provincial directors of public prosecution, is the only authority empowered to deploy a director of public prosecutions from one province to another. This is according to the National Director of Public Prosecutions Advocate, Shamila Batohi, who has accused the suspended South Gauteng prosecutions boss, Advocate Andrew Chauke, of contravening both the NPA Act and the Constitution by making prosecutorial decisions outside his jurisdiction.
National legislation must ensure that directors of public prosecutions are responsible for prosecutions in specific jurisdictions, subject to subsection 5. And then if you read that with the NPA Act that appoints DPPs to very specific jurisdictions, only the president who appoints a DPP to a specific jurisdiction can appoint a DPP to exercise jurisdiction.
Against that background that you are depicting before us, what then if the NDPP, in a matter of centralization, appoints a DPP to oversee or put up together a team, such as in this case?
Chairperson, there's a difference with centralization, and it's important to bear in mind that when that happens, the case is centralized to a particular jurisdiction, and then the DPP of that jurisdiction will be the one that will be in control, in charge of the case in his or her jurisdiction.
Retired Justice Bessin Kabinde and her co-chairs spent much of Thursday questioning Advocate Shamila Batohi's testimony at the Nkabinde Commission, particularly on whether suspended South Gauteng prosecution's boss, Advocate Andrew Chauke, was justified in allegedly making prosecutorial decisions outside his jurisdiction. But Batohi also began detailing the circumstances surrounding the Mdluli acquittal. It resumes tomorrow, with Advocate Batohi expected to continue her testimony. Offenses Timo, SABC News, Pretoria.
When we return, power utility Eskom has tabled a 3.5% multi-year wage increase for its workers. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us. Power utility Eskom has tabled a 3.5% multi-year wage increase for its workers. This after a 3-day marathon meeting between the power utility and labour unions at the National Bargaining Forum. Labour unions are demanding a 15% wage increase. The unions have rejected the new offer thus far.
Power utility Eskom has 3 labour unions, the NUM, NUMSA and Solidarity, that represent a large share of the about 42,000 workers in the company. The entity has tabled a 3% 3-year wage offer that spokesperson Daphne Mukwena believes speaks to balancing operations while looking out for the workers on their needs.
So all parties, including Eskom, tabled their demands in the last round. And now, obviously, the real negotiations are starting. Eskom tabled the offer today, and while what needs to happen is that the trade unions will also now motivate for their demands.
The National Union of Mine Workers is the majority union at Eskom, with about 15,000 workers. Spokesperson Livuwane Mamburu says they reject the offer.
Eskom has tabled its offer of 3.5%, which has so far been rejected by the NUM. It's an inflation rate kind of increase.
That 3.5% does not take into account all of the work that workers at Eskom have contributed to what we all agree is a very good and positive performance by Eskom.
Detabling of the employer's offer makes way for a bargaining process, with the parties set to meet again here at the National Bargaining Forum in January 2026 for the second of the 3 rounds of Eskom wage negotiations. I'm Matlala for SABC News in Johannesburg.
To the west of the continent, military generals have announced that they have seized control of Guinea-Bissau. The takeover came a day before the planned announcement of the election results in the West African country. Guinea-Bissau, home to just over 2 million people, has experienced at least 9 coups and attempted coups between 1974, when it gained independence from Portugal, and 2020, when the now ousted President Umaro Sissoco Embalo took office.
President Umaro Sissoco Embalo was seeking to become the first president in 3 decades to win a second consecutive term in Guinea-Bissau. The elections, which were held on Sunday, saw Embalo competing against lawyer and independent candidate Fernando Diaz. However, the election results, which were due to be announced on Thursday, were abruptly halted when the spokesperson of the High Military Command of Guinea-Bissau, Denis Nchama, announced in a broadcast that the military had taken over the country. He says, "We are deeply committed to the values of national security, civil peace, the defense of the country's territorial integrity, and the independence of Guinea-Bissau. The High Military Command is responding to the discovery of an ongoing plan to destabilize our country." The announcement came hours after there was reported gunfire near the Electoral Commission headquarters and the Presidential Palace, as well as the detention of both presidential candidates. Meanwhile, West Africa's AGOAs and African Union observers have expressed concern over the military takeover and the arrest of election officials. They called on regional bodies to take the necessary steps to restore constitutional order. Bonolo Maribe, SABC News.
It is now time for us to turn our attention to the market snapshot of the day, as last recorded at 8 o'clock tonight. Let's get into the game with the latest sports highlights. Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has picked a 23-player matchday squad for the test against Wales, with 525 caps between them, despite not having all of his original touring squad available for selection. South Africa take on Wales in Cardiff on Saturday in the Springboks' last international match of 2025, and scrum half Cobus Reinach will earn his 50th match.
His team over the last few years. It hasn't been without its challenges, and for the match against Wales, he says he was forced to pick a 7-1 split on the bench.
Having a 7-1 bench split and Cobus covering wing as well. You don't want your 9 to start, and then he goes from 9 to wing, you know. So we've got Kwaga also covering for us in the back line, and then Ben Jason also, if we do get 3 injuries in the back line, you know, which is very possible in a game like this.
Erasmus says he gave 49 players game time this season with an eye on the 2027 World Cup, and Reinach stands out.
But Cobus has been unbelievable this year. You know, I think he really is taking a role where he's helping the other 9s, but I've never seen him so involved with planning and tactics and those kind of things. And it's funny, you don't quite know when a player gets to that, and he's really taking a senior role of that, helping Grant.
The match kicks off at 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Harry Olivier, SABC News.
South Africa wants to hit the ground running when the World Rugby 7 Series gets underway in Dubai this weekend. The Blitzboks, who were crowned world champions in Los Angeles in May, finished last season in 4th place overall during the regular league stage. Argentina were crowned league champions in April.
Dubai has been a happy hunting ground for the South Africans. They've won 7 of the last 9 editions and are hoping to dethrone Fiji as defending champions. The new series format sees 2 pools of 4 teams each battle for top honours, with the top 2 in each pool advancing to the semi-finals. Assistant coach Renfred Dazal says with the new format, a solid start is non-negotiable.
If we look at the 2 pools, the one pool is obviously all the games are tough, but for us it's France, Fiji and Argentina. There's no easy game, so you need to hit the ground running when you start on Saturday. And for us it's important that we start well after a good pre-season.
The Blitzboks have chosen a very experienced squad for the season opener. 11 of the 13 players selected formed part of the final tournament of the previous season in Los Angeles. Shilton van Wyk says early dominance is crucial for long-term success.
We want to dominate the season, and since I've been in this system for the past 5 years, we didn't really dominate the whole season. We dominate like a few tournaments, and after that we slack again. So for me, just to if we can dominate the whole season, that will be like a big achievement for me.
The Blitzboks will kick off their Dubai campaign against France at 11:30 on Saturday morning, followed by Fiji at 2:15 and then Argentina at 6:30. Liesel Willifier, SABC News.
It is now time for us to see what the climate's rhythm is. Let's tap into the beat with our weather team. Your forecast is up next.
Good evening to you. Let's take a look at all your weather details. In Cape Town overnight, expect 45 km/h southeasterly winds with isolated showers possible in the south. Scattered rainfall expected through the southern and eastern coastline of South Africa this evening towards Richards Bay, whilst widespread showers are possible through the interior of the Eastern Cape, parts of KZN as well as the southern Free State. Scattered rainfall in the north of the Free State in towards Gauteng, with isolated showers expected for parts of Mpumalanga this evening. Towards the start of the weekend, we've got widespread showers now expected for the eastern escarpment of South Africa, as well as parts of the northwest province and Limpopo, whilst a scattered rainfall is expected along that east coast of the country in towards the southern coastline. Cape Town expecting partly cloudy skies tomorrow, sunny conditions just in the western parts of the Northern Cape and northern parts of the Western Cape. Onto some alerts for this evening. Be on the lookout for the potential of damaging winds from the south coast westwards towards the Cape Peninsula. Severe thunderstorms possible through the central parts of the country, stretching eastwards towards KwaZulu-Natal, while severe thunderstorms are also likely and possible through the northern parts of South Africa. Ahead towards Friday, severe thunderstorms possible through the Limpopo province across the provincial border in towards Mpumalanga, and severe thunderstorms also likely through the central parts around the Free State, southwards in towards the Eastern Cape, right where southwards towards the coastline of Gqeberha and Jeffreys Bay. We've got damaging winds again possible tomorrow. That's for the south coast of the country in towards the Western Cape. Cape Town dropping to 17 this evening, Durban at 20 degrees overnight, Johannesburg dropping to 15, warming up on Friday afternoon to a maximum of just 20, indicating a lot of cloud cover and potential rainfall in the forecast. Durban up to 28 degrees, East London the same, Gqeberha up to 26, while Cape Town warms up to 25 degrees. And then a quick look at Saturday, we see some isolated showers along the south coast. Temperatures expected to be warm though, cloudy skies for the rest of the country, with a chance of a rainfall for 60% chance showers on the east coast of the country, becoming widespread showers further north and across the borders in towards Mozambique. That's it from me. Enjoy your evening.
That is how we wrap up tonight's broadcast. Thank you for tuning in. Please note that we are not on air tomorrow evening due to the CAF Champions League match. Prime News on 3 will return on Monday. Until then, from myself, Becky, and the team, stay ahead. Good night.